again, the fear. And again, one thing you really need to be careful about is the embargo. So never forget about it. Journalists, they have a lot of things in mind. So it's good to remind them if they ask you a question about your paper, to remind them of the date of and the time of the embargo. So you only have one chance to shine, so you better be prepared. What I will recommend is to have a copy of the press release in hand. So generally it's going to stand on one page and a half. So you should really go through it in details and make sure that you are comfortable with all the information that's within the press release, because they could ask you questions about all the information that's in there. Also have a copy of your paper. So science now, these days, it's more and more a collaborative effort, but you can have questions about every part of the paper. So you should be comfortable. You can be first author and somebody else did another experiment and is second or third, but you should be able to explain those experiments, even if you didn't do it yourself. What I will recommend also is to have a list of key bullet points, which should fit on a Post-it. I know it's small, but sometimes you only have a few minutes to explain the take-home message of your study. So the 4 questions that you need, the request were dealt with by the ULaval Direction des Communications, and they will email or call me. So I will have this Word file where I will just add, when I'm available, I just add them, and I keep some information. So the name of the journalist, which newspaper it is, when it is. Do I need to call them or they call me? So that's also something to know. Sometimes they're going to give you an idea of the time, so you need to note that, so you have an idea of how long is it going to last for. Finally, you should know that if you say no, or I'm busy and call me later, they won't call back. So you had one chance, you didn't take it, they won't call back. So if you want to do some press release and give interview, be available. And you have to be available. I gave interview at 6 a.m. Because I was live on the East Coast at 7:30 or 6:30. And I did some interview at 9:30 p.m. and on the weekend. So you have to be available. Okay, first example, TV interview. So I did give this interview to Salut Bonjour, which is the morning TV show. Generally, they're going to let you know the day before, and it's for tomorrow. So think about it. When you do a press release, you already have to have an idea of what you're going to say. Those TV interviews, they're going to be about 3-4 minutes. So you don't have much time. You better think about what you're going to say and maybe practice with friends. Practice with people who don't know about your science too much, like your parents or a friend that's not in science. So this way you're going to know if your message is too complicated. Generally, it's going to be live. So no mistake allowed. And what you say, by the way, is going to be on the internet forever. So also better be prepared for that. Sometimes it's pre-recorded, but honestly, so far it's been very, very rare for TV. Sometimes you get a pre-interview. So not always, but you're going to get an idea of the question prior. So in French, we call them recherchistes. They're going to call you and they're going to ask you a couple of questions. They even can give you the opportunity to propose a question. So at the end, they can say, is there anything you want to add? Or is there anything else you would like to say? Or we ask you about. So this is a cool opportunity where you can fit something that nobody asked you about. If it's virtual, obviously you need an appropriate background. So this is me with the ULaval background. So they are providing some. I didn't want the Quebec province to see my half-finished basement. So this is something to think about. If it's in person, you need to make sure you have all the permission. For example, if it's at Cerveau or at the CHUL, it's an hospital. So you need special permission to have a camera crew coming in and starting to film, especially if you can have the possibility to see like a patient or somebody that doesn't want to be in the movie or on the camera. So you have to make sure, and this can take a little time. So better be prepared for that. If you are comfortable, especially in those general public setting, try to be funny. If for you it's hard or you really don't feel comfortable about it, just don't do it. It can be really awkward. But if you can, sometimes it's easier to connect with the public if you crack a joke or you say something nice. Also do your research. This is going to come back almost on every slide. I always read about, I go and Google the TV show, the host, just a little bit. Doesn't have to be like a super big research, just like 5 minutes. So you know what your audience is going to be, like who you're talking to. And sometimes it's going to help if you want to do a joke. So this is something to do. And yes, it's freaking stressful. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't sleep really well the night before. I did the interview at 7:30 and I was postponed because Dr. Horacio Arruda was the health of the public health, resigned. And so they were like, oh, we're sorry. 30 minutes before the interview, we're going to have to postpone you for tomorrow. So I did sleep really bad for 2 nights in a row. Thanks, salut, bonjour. Example number 2, radio interview. So radio interview, you do have different formats. So it can be between 6 to 15 minutes. If you talk at prime time, for example, in the context of the news of the morning or the news when people go back in their car late afternoon, then generally you're going to have 6 to 7 minutes. So it's a bit longer than on TV. But still, 6-7 minutes, it's going very fast, and the person is asking you questions. So you reduce it to maybe 5 minutes total that you talk. You also have to keep your answer short, especially on the radio, because it's not like you don't have a visual with the other person. So it's very important to keep your answer like 30, 45 seconds, something like that. So the other person have the opportunity to jump in and say something. If you just talk for 6 minutes on the radio, it's really awkward. So this is something to keep in mind. If it's a show that has a host, like somebody who's interested in your topic and you get invited, sometimes you're going to have more time. So it can be up to 15 minutes. So you have time to talk about more details of your work. Is there anything you want to talk about that you're working on right now or in the future, things like that. Most of the time it's live. So you have to practice and be prepared. I think it happened once or twice that it was pre-recorded in my case for like 20 or 25 different interviews. So it's almost all the time live. You sometimes, I would say 50% of the time, get a pre-interview, again, where you get an idea of the question that will be asked. And often if it's a host show, you have the opportunity to propose questions. But if it's for the radio news of the morning or the afternoon, forget about that. It's just going to be the question. Again, if you are comfortable, you can be funny. And really important to do your research. For example, for Laurent's paper, I gave interview for Radio-Canada and Choix Radio X, 2 very opposite audience and crowd. So you need to be aware of that. Radio-Canada, it's generally very formal. Sometimes they have science shows. So this is something very different than Choix Radio X. But for example, Choix Radio X, I did Google the guy. I saw that he was doing some video games reviews. And so I had 15 minutes. So I talk a bit about using video games as a resilience strategy in my case with COVID. And then so suddenly we really connected and he was all excited about it. So to do your research can make a big difference. Example 3, which is a podcast. So podcast is very interesting because it's so much longer. It's going to be like 30 to 90 minutes. It's always pre-recorded. You're generally going to have almost all the time the list of questions prior, and you can even discuss the list of questions. So if there's something you're not comfortable with, if there's something you want to expand, or if there's something that you feel the person missed, you can really orient the question. The other thing that's cool is you can often say, okay, I didn't say what I wanted to say the way I wanted to say it. So can you please stop and I'm going to start my answer again. So you can do some edition of the recording. So this is something that's interesting. The other thing that you need to know, if they want to know about your science, but also about yourself. So they're going to ask you about your career path, whatever hobbies you have. And if you have stories, I don't know, for example, in my case, I work on stress. So I talk about stress being also a way to form memories. For example, I will give an example of when I traveled to Ireland, I did get lost and then we were like with friends and it was really stressful. We thought we would have to call an helicopter. And at the end, we found our way. And so you talk about it so you connect with the people. When I talk about my career path, I often talk about the fact that I did work at Casual Sport and I was selling chicken wing and beer when I was a grad student, and it pushed me to talk to people behind the bar about my science, and those people did not have all the same background as I did. So this is the kind of thing that they really like, because then the audience will feel like they can connect with you. Finally, I will say in this case, it's also important to do your research and read about the host, but often they provide a list of the previous guests if you do Google the podcast. So that gives you a good idea of the interest of the audience. The example number 4, the text interview. So those are the ones that generally you don't do much. It's a phone interview with the journalist, 15, 20 minutes, but most of the article will be based on the press release. So they're almost going to copy paste what's in the press release. They're going to often ask to record you on the phone call because they're going to quote you. So this is something that you have to be aware that they can quote you in the article. And then sometimes they will email you with question to get precision about the paper. For example, here you have Québec Science. I did give a full interview. In this case, for Inverse, they send us a list of questions. And then sometimes the press release just get translated in a language I do not understand, which is here Polish. And Katarzyna said it was a proper report of her findings. So I was pretty happy about it. And finally, the portrait. So this is something that doesn't occur very often, but you can have a journalist that will ask about, we want to talk about you as a scientist or as a grad student, if you are involved in different things. And so you need to know first why they want to talk about you. And because they're going to want to talk about your science, but also have maybe your opinion, your advice. So for example, today is the International Day of Women and Girls in Science. And so I did give an interview about that a few years ago. And so this is something they want your opinion about. They don't want to hear about the blood-brain barrier and how it affects stress in this case. Same with these other examples where they wanted to talk about my career path, for example. So this is very different than your research. Okay, so now what do you do with all these media communication? So it's important to have them on your CV. It can really distinguish yourself from your peers to have a section on media and where you keep track of, you keep the link. Now everything is available online, so you can keep a link so people can click on it and then see the interview or have access to the newspaper. One thing that's more and more used by the journal are these alt metrics. So you have here Laurent's paper with the alt metrics at the bottom here. So if you click on metrics, it gives you this. So the online attention, and then you have different categories. For example, blogs, that still exists in 2022, news outlet, and then so it can give you an idea of who's talking about your paper. And you're going to have link. So for example, the news link, you're going to have the link with the different newspaper article. And most of them, for example, the one in other countries, ULaval won't track them generally. It's kind of hard to do. And then so you can find them here. Same with the blog and with the Twitter. I'm going to come back to Twitter at the very end. So with Twitter, you can have, for example, how many tweets and how many followers or people were reached through the Twitter or the tweet that were done with the paper. Finally, the last thing is that you can ask the Direction des Communications, if you had the press release, to give you a summary. So it's called a revue de presse. And then it's kind of a Word or PDF file where you have a link of every single mention of your paper in every newspaper article, radio, media, etc. For example, with Laurent's paper, the PDF was 11 pages long. So there's no way I could have tracked all that by just looking on Google. So this is a nice thing to have. Why is it important to communicate with the media and the general public? So you have here the different funding agencies that either fund your science, your scholarship, the grant of your PI, whatever. All this is paid with tax money, taxpayer money. So the people need to know what we do with the money that they provide, because this way we can ask for more. It's also, I feel it's an obligation, or it's mandatory to give back to the people who funded. So that's one of the reasons I think it's very important. And this is why I often participate and encourage my students to participate to a general public event like Pint of Science, for example. I think it's important we give back, because the more people understand about the science we do, the more they get excited about it, the more they could push their a politician or the people who represent them to fund more science. So that's why it's important to give back. I'm going to end with Twitter. So Twitter, is it worth it? So I know that I have some friends in PI that think it's too much work. Some people are in love with it. So you have all the extreme. You have to know that one day, hopefully, I hope personally, there's going to be a variety of metrics to get going to be used for recruitment, promotion, even if you're a grad student to get a postdoc. But you have to know that right now, our money, so our currency, as a scientist is generally the number of citation. And also there's so many papers now that are published with the open access journal and the journal that are not on paper anymore, that nobody reads journal table of content anymore, which is something I was doing when I was a grad student. I will go get the Nature or the Journal of Neuroscience in paper, check what paper are interesting in the table of content. Nobody's doing that anymore. So you can publish the best paper in the world, but if nobody goes read it, you're not going to be cited. So when we think about Twitter, you have here a couple of studies, because we're scientists, that did look at the impact of tweeting about research. And you have here this shocking, or I would say surprising, finding that basically if you tweet about your research, you can get as 3 times more citation. And you have here this study on over 1,000 articles where you have a significant correlation in the number of tweets and altmetric score that I just present you, and the number of citation. If you want to know more, there is a couple of papers about how to use Twitter as a scientist, if it's good, bad. I did see some interesting thing in that paper. For example, if you're on the clinical side, it can help you recruit participants, for example. But you have to be careful because, for example, never tweet a picture about a mouse doing social defeat or anything like that, because then you're going to get the animal activist, which is another beast. So you have to be careful how you use social media, obviously. But personally, I think it's another tool to sell your science that is important. You have to be aware of the Kardashian. This is my last slide. So this came out a couple of years ago about the Kardashian index. So the profile, some people who are on Twitter have a ton of followers, but at the same time, they don't have that many citations. So you do have this person here who has, 75,000 followers, but about 500 or 600 citation. And on the other side, you have people with a ton of citation and not that many followers. So I did the exercise this morning while preparing my slides. And I was shocked to see I'm a Kardashian-ish. So I'm at the edge here in this circle of the Kardashian. So this is basically my face this morning when I saw it. So now I need more citation or less follower. That's it. So if you have any question en anglais ou en français, ça va me faire plaisir.
Wow. Thank you very much. This talk was very, very good. I really liked it. And well, anyone that has any question, please feel free to raise your hand or ask them directly. And if not, you can write them down and we will read it. We will read them out loud.
I'm glad you enjoy it. I prepared it this morning. I was giving a talk at 8:15 for a virtual meeting, and I prepared it after. Louisa told me yesterday, you have to present something. I was like, I have to present something.
No, I didn't show that you prepared it just today. So no, it was really good. Really, really good. Well, I'll make a question. I have several questions, actually. So my main question was, how do you manage to change the wordings? Because in science, we're used to talk with a certain language that when you talk to people that is not inside science, they don't really follow, or not even inside science, but not in, when they are not even inside your same group or they don't study the same area. How do you manage to change the language?
So that's a really good question. I would say you have to think really hard about how you can explain things that are clear, but at the same time, people don't want to feel like they are dumb. So you have to make sure that it's not too simple. For example, in my case, I do describe the blood-brain barrier. First, I will explain the role it plays. So it's going to be really important to transport nutrients to feed the cell of the brain, which are the neurons. So I will use the word neurons, but I will say like they are the cell of the brain. So then it gives a little bit of background at the same time. I will also say that the blood-brain barrier is acting like a fence. So it will protect your brain for anything that's toxic that's circulating in the blood. And then you do have those cells that are like the block of the fence, and in between you have a door, which are like the tight junction. So I will use, for me, it's images. Like I would really describe it as in my head, or I see a blood-brain barrier, or I will describe it to not a kid, but someone who doesn't know. But when I was a grad student, I work on, there's also some topics that are more sexy and easier to explain than other, I'm not gonna lie. So when I was a grad student, I was working on glutamate receptor and phospholipase. And I will say that those were enzymes that act like a Pac-Man, and they would like eat the tail or the butt of the receptor. And then so you find ways that are kind of funny, but at the same time, you explain something scientific. You also have to be careful. Like, for example, when I talk about depression, I always receive email about people who are depressed and want help. So this is also something to keep in mind when you talk to the public. And so you have to be aware that there's some people that listen to you that for them, it's exciting and important, but they need help. So this is something also that you don't want to, for example, make it funny and reduce the burden of their symptom, for example. So this is a fine line. So that's why it's worth really thinking about it before doing anything.
And regarding this last thing that you just said, when you, for example, these people that come to you, they are depressed and they reach you. Do you have any, I don't know, link or a person who they can go to? So that you don't answer to them, oh, I don't do that, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So the first thing I have an email prepare, an answer prepare, and the first thing I say is I'm not a clinician, so I don't want to comment on your particular situation. But then I give them resources. You never know if they are from a region, from Montreal, from Quebec. So generally I give them for example, a link to the Mental Health Institute in Quebec City at the Douglas, which is in Montreal. And I also link them Sonia Lupien website, which is a stresshumain.ca, that has some resources how to deal with stress, because you never know where they are. But I make it clear right at the beginning that I'm not going to become their doctor and answer, because you would be surprised. People can answer like a wall of text with all the the drugs and meds that they got throughout the years. They can go with like, I try to commit suicide, and they can explain all that in an email. So you need to reply. That's the first thing I will say. You really need to reply, but I will right away give resources, and often they will reply back and say thank you, that they really appreciate it. But yes, this is something you have to be aware, and this is true for depression, but it's probably also true for neurodegenerative disease or any other condition.
Yeah. I don't know if someone wants to add any other question. If not, I can continue. But then when you talked about the TV, when you go to TV, that reminded me a lot to a movie that came out not long ago. I don't know if you've seen it. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the name in case we are on YouTube. But there's this movie about a steroid that people from NASA found out. I don't know if you've heard about it.
Yes.
Okay. It reminded me a lot to this situation where you go, when you're a grad student and you for the first time you go to TV and you're asked what's going on, and you try to say that it's terrible what you just found out, but they just take you as a crazy person if you say like that. How do you manage to keep calm and like make sure that you don't end up like a meme in the internet?
It's a great question, and it's also a great movie. I would say to be prepared is a key. You need to also visualize what you're going to say, and sometimes you have to be aware that they're going to ask questions that you were not expecting. So you have to think about all the possibilities and all the questions that could be asked, even some that will throw you off completely of what you were thinking. You should know so that you can have help to deal with the media. So, for example, the CIUS, Capitale Nationale, you can ask the help of their communication office if you want someone to go with you, if you are like live on the radio or on TV, and that person can say, okay, that's enough, like this is not an appropriate question. So if you have zero experience, they can even train you and help you with that, because I think it's a skill that you need to practice, and the more you do it, the more comfortable you become. But yeah, sometimes there is some things that are very unexpected, or you get questions that sometimes you think and out loud, like, I hope they're not going to ask me that. And then they ask it. And then you're like, oh man. So you need to be prepared for kind of everything, especially when it's live. And it's mostly the case live. But also the more you do it, the more your message, you practice it, it becomes more clear. And at the end, it's a burden because you don't want also to also always repeat yourself and be like a broken radio.
Yeah.
Estelle, any question? Throwing you under the bus right now.
Non, c'est la seule question que j'aurais, effectivement, ça rejoint un peu ce que Marina vient de demander, mais aussi dans le sens d'est-ce que vous aviez déjà fait beaucoup de représentation, un peu de vulgarisation avant d'avoir fait les premières interviews, que ce soit à la télé ou bien dans des journaux. Est-ce qu'auparavant, vous aviez participé à beaucoup d'épreuves de vulgarisation scientifique comme Maths en 180 secondes, comme Paint of Science ou...
Oui, en fait, c'est une très bonne question. Moi, ça n'existait pas, la thèse en 180 secondes, quand j'étais étudiante. Mais oui, j'ai fait beaucoup de concours de présentation de posters. J'ai fait quelques concours de vulgarisation aussi quand j'étais étudiante au doctorat. Postdoc, il y a eu moins d'opportunités, mais aussi, je pense qu'avec les médias, il faut aussi être... attachant, j'ai le goût de dire. Si tu es un invité qui ont l'impression que c'est le fun puis que les gens vont être intéressés, souvent, ils vont te réinviter. Puis aussi, ce qu'un journaliste m'a déjà dit, c'est qu'ils ont des listes où ils ont comme les très bons invités, les invités corrects, les invités qu'on réinvitera pas. Puis si tu es sur la liste des bons invités, aussitôt qu'ils vont voir ton nom passer, ils vont te réinviter. Donc, puis c'est comme je disais aussi, c'est des fois, eux, ils voient passer beaucoup de choses, puis s'ils connaissent un peu, de les contacter, puis de dire, ben, on a une nouvelle recherche qui vient de sortir, ça peut être bien. Mais c'est ça, avec la pratique, on devient meilleur. Mais il n'y a pas de façon secrète. Moi, on me dit, il faudrait, une façon de s'améliorer, c'est de s'écouter. Ou de se relire ou de se voir, moi, je suis pas capable. Je me suis jamais... Fait que c'est mon chum qui me le dit. J'ai envoyé le lien, puis j'ai dit, peux-tu me dire si c'est correct? J'étudie des affaires qui n'ont pas d'allure, mais moi, je m'écoute pas parce que j'ai l'impression que ma voix est bizarre, puis ça me tente pas de me voir. Je vois, Louisa, t'as la main? Yes, Louisa.
Hi, I have a question, but we are running out of time, but I'm gonna make it just, it's more, it's something that happens with simple conversations. It's been misunderstood. And obviously in the interviews and especially translating science to the general public, sometimes that can happen. And I wanted to ask you, like, if that ever happened, like someone misunderstanding or changing the actual outcomes of your research, and if so, what did you do with that?
Well, it never happened to completely like change the research, like the finding is completely the opposite, but sometimes people will try to apply what you do, for example, in mice or in rodent, and try to bring it to human. So when people do that, I always bring limitations. For example, it's also important to highlight why we do research in animals, and because it helps develop new therapies or new therapeutics that are very important. So this is a question I often get. So why is animal research important? But you need to also have your post-it that if the interview is going in a direction you don't want to, you try to bring it back, because at the end it's you talking, the microphone is yours. So if they ask you a question, I also once said I'm not comfortable to talk about that, or I'm not an expert, so I will not want to expand on this topic. Sometimes you can also say, I have a colleague that works on that. If you want to know more, I will maybe check for the work of that person. But yes, if you are really not comfortable or they are going in the wrong direction, you have to bring them back, and then you can say that you prefer not to answer. Again, with training and having someone to coach you at the beginning can be really helpful.
Yeah. Definitely. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes. Okay. Good. I think we're gonna finish here, and we're gonna continue with the videos so that we don't extend the event too long. But in any case, if I can ask you questions later, I will definitely will.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, so now we will present the 6 competing videos. But before playing the first one, we would like to say a special thanks to our jury members, Vincent Poiton-Provencher, Silvia Pozzi, Jessica Delaurier, and Julia Hernandez-Rapp, who very well appreciated just as much as we did the quality of the videos, as well as the great work behind them.
Oui, donc nous allons désormais vous présenter les 6 vidéos de ce concours de vidéos scientifiques. Et avant tout, donc, nous tenions vraiment à remercier sincèrement les membres du jury, donc Vincent Breton-Provencher, Sylvia Pozzi, Jessica Delaurier et Julia Hernandez-Rapp, qui ont donc vraiment beaucoup apprécié, tout comme nous, donc la qualité des vidéos ainsi que l'important travail qu'il y avait derrière tout ça.
Okay, so the first video is from Odessa. Odessa, she's a PhD student working at Dr. Paul de Connect lab. We're not going to see her video about the role of microglia in the microbiota gut-brain axis. And the judges have appreciated the nice visuals accompanied by a good definition of microbiota and microglia.
Donc la première vidéo est celle d'Odessa Tanvé. Donc Odessa est étudiante au doctorat au sein du laboratoire du docteur Paul de Coninck et nous présente sa vidéo sur le rôle de la microglie dans l'axe microbiote intestin-cerveau, pour laquelle donc les juges ont relevé un très beau visuel accompagné d'une belle définition du microbiote et de la microglie.
Bonjour, je vais vous présenter le rôle de la microglie dans l'axe microbiote intestin-cerveau. Mais allez-vous me dire, que sont les microglies et qu'est-ce qu'un microbiote? Commençons donc par quelques explications. Tout d'abord, le microbiote intestinal est l'ensemble de micro-organismes, majoritairement des bactéries et des virus, qui sont bénéfiques et qui vivent dans notre intestin. Ces micro-organismes sont nécessaires à de nombreuses fonctions, telles que l'alimentation ou la protection contre les bactéries néfastes, dites pathogènes. Nous savons également que le microbiote intestinal impacte le cerveau. Cependant, nous ne savons pas encore par quel mécanisme le microbiote peut impacter le cerveau, ni l'importance de ces impacts. Ce que nous savons en revanche, c'est que dans le cerveau, des études ont déjà démontré que le microbiote intestinal pouvait moduler les microglies. Les microglies sont, comme les neurones, des cellules du cerveau. Elles ont de nombreux rôles au cours du temps. Un de leurs rôles très importants a lieu lors du développement du cerveau. En effet, à ce stade, les microglies vont organiser les neurones, c'est-à-dire qu'un neurone mal connecté sera éliminé. Cette élimination est effectuée par les microglies via un processus nommé phagocytose. Pour simplifier, les microglies vont détecter un neurone mal connecté et l'engloutir, le digérer pour l'éliminer. Alors comment le microbiote impacte-t-il la phagocytose lors du développement du cerveau? Et est-ce que ce microbiote intestinal peut influencer le développement de nos réseaux neuronaux? Pour cette étude, nous utilisons le poisson zèbre, un modèle qui possède de nombreux avantages. On peut d'abord voir qu'il possède, comme l'homme, un cerveau composé des mêmes cellules et un intestin avec un microbiote. De plus, la larve de poisson zèbre est transparente. Nous pouvons donc observer des phénomènes biologiques à l'intérieur du poisson zèbre de manière non invasive. Les poissons zèbres peuvent être également modifiés génétiquement, ce qui nous permet d'exprimer des protéines fluorescentes dans des structures d'intérêt. Nous pouvons ainsi observer le phénomène de phagocytose, détaillé précédemment, en utilisant des larves qui expriment des protéines fluorescentes rouges dans les neurones et des larves qui expriment des protéines fluorescentes vertes dans les microglies. Nous pouvons ainsi voir les microglies en vert qui ont phagocyté les neurones en rouge. Et lorsque nous zoomons, nous pouvons observer les petits points orange à l'intérieur des microglies, preuve qu'elles ont bien phagocyté les neurones. Les larves sont ainsi imagées pendant 40 minutes afin d'obtenir des films. Voici quelques films que nous avons obtenus au laboratoire. Ici, une larve de 4 jours. Nous pouvons observer les microglies très mobiles, mais effectuant peu de phagocytose. En effet, nous voyons peu de rouge ou de jaune à l'intérieur des microglies. Ici, une larve de 8 jours qui, à l'inverse, montre énormément de rouge ou de jaune à l'intérieur des microglies. Ces microglies font donc beaucoup de phagocytose. Et si nous zoomons sur une microglie, nous pouvons voir que cette microglie phagocyte énormément, mais elle est très peu mobile. En effet, seuls ses prolongements, ses bras, se déplacent dans son environnement. Par la suite, nous allons enlever le microbiote intestinal de nos poissons et voir cet impact sur les microglies et les neurones.
Okay. If Odessa wants to open her microphone, I don't know if anyone has any question that want to ask to Odessa. Please go ahead. You can either write them in the chat of the Zoom or live chat in YouTube. Or if not, you can just raise your hand and talk out loud. Estelle?
Yes. Oui, donc si vous avez des questions que vous souhaitez adresser à Odessa, n'hésitez pas donc à les poser dans le chat ou bien lever la main directement pour interagir tout de suite.
Okay. Okay, we had prepared the question. So Odessa, you in the video you show that you work with zebrafish, with a zebrafish model, and in there you explain which are some of the advantages of this model. But how can these models be translated to humans, considering that the fish are quite far, evolutionary speaking, from humans?
Okay, so did you hear me or not?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, cool. So thanks, nice question. It's not supposed to be extended to human, it's more in just the first point to understand something. And by the way, 60% of the genome of the zebrafish is common with human, which is not like Drosophile, for example, that is really, really far away. And you still have some biological system that is conserved, a lot of them. And intestine is not exactly the same, of course, but there is an intestine, and there is digestion, and there is a microbiota, and also the brain is, of course, not the same, but you found the same cells, you found the neurons, you found the microglia, you found everyone. Everyone is here exactly like in humans. So, of course, it's not exactly the same, but if you found some process and some changements really interesting, you can suspect at least that they also happen in other animals like mammals, like humans. So that is just to understand how much working in the brain some stuff. And zebrafish for that is really cool because they are transparent, so you can see directly inside the brain. So there is a lot of biological systems that you can really understand better because of them. So I think it's really interesting for that.
Okay, thank you.
Merci Odessa. Du coup, on va pouvoir passer à la deuxième vidéo qui est donc celle de Daniel Manrique. Donc Daniel est étudiant en post-doctorat au sein du laboratoire du docteur Ayman Elali et présente une vidéo jugée très professionnelle et audacieuse sur le trauma cérébral et la cicatrisation.
So Daniel Manrique will be the next video that we're gonna watch. He is a postdoc working for Dr. Ayman Elali lab. He presents a video according to the jury, very professional and fearless video presentation about brain injury and scarring.
The minor injuries we suffer daily causes a quick response to scar and heal the skin. Shortly after, new cells replace the injured ones, and the wound becomes faint. In the brain, however, the matter is different, cause dead neurons have no replacement.
One day, my grandmother was cooking and suddenly a strong headache came over her. Everything turned white and she instantly lost consciousness.
2 days later, Mrs. Peterson woke up in the intensive care unit, realizing she had suffered stroke, a brain injury interrupting blood flow.
Her life changed dramatically since. She has a tricky time doing everyday activities, cooking or getting out of bed. Her left side does not respond as before. Luckily, I can support her when needed, and we learned to overcome many of the difficulties the injury brought.
At Schule du Québec of University Laval, Dr. Daniel Manrique is a neuroscientist devoted to unrevealing how the brain heals and recovers from injuries.
After a brain injury, the neuronal data strongly impacts people's quality of life. but we have different cell types that quickly respond to aid the brain recovery to a certain degree.
Using mice to simulate stroke, Dr. Manrique explores how neuroglia, perivascular cells, astrocytes, pericytes, and microglia build a scar and contribute to recovery.
Overpassing the consequences of brain injury is challenging. However, our team has begun to elucidate the amazing potential that brain pericytes and neuroglia have for neurological recovery.
The use of transgenic mice allows Dr. Manrique to easily spot cell reactions to injury and explore the biological machinery implicated in scar formation. Using computational models to analyze the patterns of cell migration and arrangement in the injury areas provides some essential insights to portray alternative recovery routes.
Understanding how pericytes and neuroglia build a scar will allow us to develop novel therapeutic strategies. We can aim at controlling these cells and use them as instruments to help neurons reorganizing and establishing new functional networks. We can even analyze the genetic properties of single cells and reprogram them to become functional neurons. Every day we learn something new, and we are gradually approaching to a global understanding of the neurovascular response.
Merci beaucoup donc Daniele pour la vidéo. Donc tout comme précédemment, si vous avez des questions, n'hésitez pas à les poser dans le chat ou bien intervenir directement.
Hello, I'm here.
So, well, feel free to ask if you have any questions.
Renata, go.
Thank you. I think definitely it's let's say it's a hero. I mean, I understand the response of the whole neurovascular unit to injury as a well-preserved evolutionary mechanism, and it's well preserved during millions of years and has aided evolution of different mammalian species to change over time. So definitely microglia, astrocytes, pericytes, and the whole neurovascular response, I understand it is as a beneficial effect for brain injury, definitely.
Okay. Estelle, do you want to continue?
Nous allons donc passer maintenant à la troisième vidéo qui est présentée par Sarah Lecordier. Donc Sarah est étudiante au doctorat, également au sein du laboratoire du docteur Ayman Elali, et elle présente une vidéo sur la maladie d'Alzheimer et les micro-infarctus qui a été saluée pour son approche différente et humoristique.
Okay, so Sarah is a PhD student working also at Dr. Ayman Elali lab. She presents a video about Alzheimer and microstrokes, complemented for her different and humoristic approach. We're waiting for the video to be shared.
Salut, moi c'est Cervelle, ton nouveau professeur de sciences naturelles. Pour la leçon du jour, je te propose un aperçu sur la maladie d'Alzheimer et les micro-infarctus. Ouvre ton cahier et retiens bien ce qui suit. La maladie d'Alzheimer est une maladie du vieillissement qui touche nos aînés. Aujourd'hui, 564 000 Canadiens sont atteints et la majorité sont des femmes. Cette maladie cause surtout des problèmes de mémoire et elle est incurable. Quelle horreur! Les chercheurs, ces grands savants, ont montré que des anomalies au niveau des vaisseaux de ton cerveau, l'organe qui se trouve dans ta tête, sont à l'origine de cette maladie et participent à sa progression. Mais pendant son stade précoce, la maladie d'Alzheimer cause elle-même des problèmes au niveau des vaisseaux qui se bouchent et entraînent la mort des cellules non approvisionnées en nutriments et oxygène. La grande question qui se sont posées, c'est qu'est-ce que ça fait, ces micro-infarctus sur la maladie d'Alzheimer ? Allez, suis-moi en immersion. Voici la ville Alzheimer Garçon. C'est une ville paisible, mais un peu vieillotte, composée uniquement d'hommes. Même si la ville tombe en ruine, les habitants sont heureux. Ils reçoivent des nutriments et de l'oxygène grâce aux routes, qui sont des vaisseaux sanguins. Mais les habitants sont assez sales et ils jettent des détritus partout, ce qui forme des plaques amyloïdes de la maladie d'Alzheimer. Et plus le temps passe, plus il y a de déchets. Mais c'est une ville où il y a beaucoup d'orages, ce qui détruit les routes. Les habitants crient à l'aide, ils n'ont plus d'oxygène, l'air est irrespirable. C'est alors que les pompiers et le SAMU arrivent très vite en urgence pour les aider. Ainsi, les habitants retrouvent un climat plus calme, avec des déchets plus petits. Mais un vent de déprime des caquins s'abat alors sur la ville, qui pousse les habitants à se mettre en grève. Les habitants ne retournent pas travailler, et c'est ce qui provoque chez nos grands-pères de problèmes de mémoire qui sont précipités et à long terme. Attendez, ce n'est pas fini! Il y a aussi Alzheimer fille. Comme les garçons, ce village de femmes est délabré et vieillissant. De la même façon, elles reçoivent de l'oxygène et des nutriments. Et malheureusement, elles sont aussi très sales. La ville est remplie de détritus qui sont plus petits mais plus nombreux que ceux des hommes. Cette ville est aussi très souvent dans la tourmente, avec de gros orages effrayants qui bouchent les routes et asphyxient les villageoises qui hurlent au secours. Une brigade de pompiers et de SAMU entièrement féminine se précipite alors à leur secours et profite pour en nettoyer un peu la ville qui retrouve son calme après la tempête. Les détritus mis à la poubelle, l'air est enfin plus respirable avec une légère brise de décacao. Les villageoises, heureuses de leur nouvelle acquisition de sacs à main œstrogéniques, s'empressent de retourner travailler. Ainsi, d'après cette étude, vos grands-mères ont des troubles de mémoire modérés et transitoires. Hein? Mais ça va pas! Et oui, les chercheurs n'ont pas pensé que les œstrogènes changeraient autant la donne. Alors, s'ils reproduisaient cette expérience avec des souris ovariectomisées, il est fort à penser que celles-ci seraient plus fortement impactées que les mâles. Mais surtout, les résultats ont un sérieux impact sur la prise en charge des patients et l'élaboration de nouveaux traitements, puisqu'il faudrait maintenant tenir compte du sexe biologique et aussi de la présence de micro-infarctus. Vous pouvez maintenant ranger vos cahiers. Merci et à bientôt pour une nouvelle immersion.
Merci beaucoup, Sarah, donc pour cette vidéo. Donc, si tu veux ouvrir ta caméra aussi, puis être prête si tu as des questions. Donc, n'hésitez pas aussi à poser vos questions à Sarah.
Well, everyone, please feel free to ask if you have any questions to Sarah. Okay, yes, Luisa.
Hi, Sarah. I'm going to ask my question in English in case if you don't get it, Estelle can help you.
Yeah, it's fine, no problem.
I love the video. It's so fun to watch and really a simple way to explain. And my question is more a curiosity of like, how did you come up with the whole story with the plumber and everything? And is an explanation that you already gave to someone else, or you just came up with for the video?
I came up for the video because I saw the CERVOtube contest, and I said to myself, I have to participate. And then it was also said creativity. And I wished to create something that was completely different, but also accessible to most of the people that have no idea about biology or the different type of cells we have in the brain. And I thought about many cartoons I saw when I was a kid. And this small cervelle, or brainy, you could say in English, was the first step I thought about to get someone that I could always have if I continue doing videos like this.
So, yeah, I think it was a great creation, and you should definitely keep Brainy to explain more science and neuroscience things. It's going to be a success.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Oh, we have another participant who raised her hand.
Yeah, hi. So yeah, great job. You're very creative. I was just wondering what program you used for making the animations.
I used BioRender to make all my slides, and then I was on iMovie just to build the whole video together.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Ok, bah, merci encore Sarah. Puis je pense qu'on va pouvoir passer à la vidéo suivante.
Plaisir, merci.
Yes, thank you very much. So the next video that we'll be watching is that from Amélie. Amélie is a PhD student. She works at Dr. Jean-Pierre Julien lab. She will present a video appreciated by the visuals and synthesis of her project, the antibodies at the rescue of the motor neurons.
Donc, Amélie est étudiante au doctorat au sein du laboratoire du docteur Jean-Pierre Julien et présente une vidéo appréciée pour son visuel et la synthèse du projet, les anticorps à la rescousse des neurones moteurs.
Qui n'a jamais entendu parler du Ice Bucket Challenge? Ce défi dans lequel les participants devaient se verser un seau d'eau glacée sur la tête a été lancé en 2014 et avait pour but de ramasser des fonds pour faire avancer la recherche sur la sclérose latérale amyotrophique. La sclérose latérale amyotrophique est une maladie neurodégénérative affectant plus de 3000 personnes au Canada. Chez les patients atteints de la SLA, les neurones moteurs meurent progressivement. Ces neurones moteurs sont les cellules du système nerveux responsables de faire le relais du cerveau jusqu'aux muscles pour transmettre l'ordre de se contracter. La mort de ces neurones moteurs cause donc des problèmes de motricité, puis une paralysie se propage progressivement à travers le corps. Ultimement, cette paralysie atteint les muscles contrôlant la respiration et entraîne le décès du patient dans les 2 à 5 ans suivant le diagnostic. Malheureusement, il n'existe encore aucune cure contre cette maladie. Les causes et les mécanismes de la maladie demeurent encore peu connus. Cependant, des études précédentes ont permis de découvrir que certaines protéines présentes dans nos cellules et utiles à leur fonctionnement sont dérégulées dans les neurones de plus de 90% des cas de SLA. Une de ces protéines, la protéine TDP43, nous intéresse particulièrement. Pour fonctionner, se trouve normalement dans le noyau des cellules, et dans le contexte de la SLA, cette protéine est délocalisée vers le cytoplasme, s'accumule et agrège dans les cellules, devenant ainsi toxique pour la cellule. Notre laboratoire s'applique donc à trouver un moyen d'aider les cellules à se débarrasser de cette forme toxique de la protéine afin de favoriser la survie de celle-ci. La thérapie que nous testons actuellement est un anticorps dirigé contre la protéine TDP43. Cet anticorps pénètre dans la cellule et l'aide à dégrader le 43 pour s'en débarrasser. Cet anticorps est donc injecté dans la moelle épinière de souris malade atteinte de la SLA. Il pourra alors diffuser le long de la moelle épinière et pénétrer dans les cellules du système nerveux pour y accomplir sa mission. Des tranches fines de la moelle épinière sont donc coupées. La protéine TDP43 est colorée en rouge grâce à une technique appelée immunofluorescence. Ainsi, il est possible d'analyser l'état et la localisation de la protéine TDP43 grâce à un microscope spécial appelé le microscope confocal. On peut alors observer une absence de signal rouge au centre des cellules, c'est-à-dire une absence de la protéine TDP43 dans le noyau des neurones malades, alors que dans les neurones traités avec l'anticorps, le signal rouge et donc la protéine TDP43 est principalement dans le noyau, là où elle devrait se trouver dans les cellules saines. Nos résultats ont donc montré que l'anticorps utilisé réussit à réduire la quantité de TDP43 dans les cellules de la moelle épinière des souris. De plus, le test de démarche nous a révélé que les souris ayant reçu le traitement d'anticorps ont moins de problèmes de motricité que les souris n'ayant pas reçu le traitement. Yeah! Il reste encore beaucoup de travail sur la planche pour vérifier l'efficacité de cette thérapie et améliorer son utilisation, mais les résultats sont prometteurs et nous rapprochent du jour où une thérapie sécuritaire et efficace sera disponible pour ralentir ou traiter cette maladie.
Well, thank you, Amélie, for the video. If anyone from the public has any question.
Merci beaucoup Amélie pour la vidéo. Donc, n'hésitez pas à poser vos questions à Amélie dans le chat ou en levant la main.
Okay. Estelle, do you read it?
Yes. Donc, on a une question dans le chat qui nous vient d'Elena qui demande si tu peux dire quelles sont tes hypothèses sur les mécanismes d'action de ton anticorps.
Oui, bien sûr. En français ou en anglais? Je vais y aller en anglais pour que tout le monde comprenne. Est-ce que vous m'entendez bien? J'ai l'impression qu'Internet bug un peu.
Yeah.
Ça va? Okay. So I'm going to answer in English so everyone can know the answer. So I was asked what are the mechanism of action of the antibody that we use. So it has been shown before that the Fc region of the antibody interact with TRIM1 protein, which enhances the degradation via proteasome and autophagy.
Parfait, merci beaucoup.
Yes, Louisa?
Hi, Emily. Really great video. I have one. The therapy seems like with the antibodies seems like a great idea. Do you think that it's how far it would be to get this actually for like therapeutic in humans? Do you think it's a long way?
Yes, it is. I think that here we all know, unfortunately, that it takes a really long time to go to humans. For now, the antibody that we use is from mouse origin. So definitely we could not use it as it is in humans. So someone from our lab, Anna, a postdoc, is trying to make a humanized form. And this way we will get even closer to use it in humans, but then it would need way more tests and making sure that it's efficient at creating side effects, because we know that sometimes it reduces, here in this case TDP-43, but induces a little bit inflammation. So we want to make sure that if we use it, it's totally safe. So unfortunately I think there's still a long way before we can use it in humans.
But it's nice that it's great to know that you're already looking for a human antibody. So it's one step closer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, good. So if there is no more questions, we continue with the next video.
Donc, la prochaine vidéo est celle d'Adrien Castellanos Molina. Donc, Adrien est étudiant au doctorat au sein du laboratoire du docteur Steve Lacroix et présente une vidéo originale et bien vulgarisée sur le rôle de l'interleukine 1 alpha dans la lésion de la moelle épinière.
So, Adrien is a PhD student. He works at Dr. Steve Lacroix lab. He presents an original and well-popularized video about the role of interleukin 1A in a spinal cord injury.
Molina, de l'équipe de Dr Steve Lacroix au Centre de recherche du CHU de Québec, Université Laval, et voici mon projet sur l'interleukine 1 alpha dans les lésions à la moelle épinière. Pour pouvoir vous expliquer mon projet, il faut d'abord prendre un instant et jeter un œil aux cellules principales qui composent le système nerveux central. La plus connue est certainement le neurone, la cellule principale du système nerveux central. Le neurone transmet les influx électriques, ce qu'on appelle la synapse, contrôlant ainsi les fonctions du corps, telles la respiration, les battements cardiaques, pour ne nommer que ces exemples. Une autre cellule essentielle au bon fonctionnement du système nerveux central est l'oligodendrocyte. La fonction principale de l'oligodendrocyte est la formation de la myéline, une prolongation de la cellule qui entoure l'axone du neurone. La myéline est très importante pour la protection de l'axone, en plus d'aider à la transmission des influx électriques par l'accélération de celle-ci. Vient ensuite la microglie. Cette cellule partage ses origines avec les autres cellules immunitaires du corps, mais n'est présente que dans le système nerveux central. Elle y favorise l'homéostasie, le maintien de conditions normales à l'intérieur des tissus. Toutefois, elle favorisera également l'inflammation après une blessure, en tentant d'éliminer une infection ou réparer les dommages, cherchant ainsi à revenir à l'homéostasie. La dernière cellule qui requiert notre attention est l'astrocyte. Lorsqu'on est en présence de conditions normales, l'astrocyte aide à la communication neuronale, la synapse. En cas de dommage, elle favorisera l'inflammation. Si les dommages sont trop importants, l'astrocyte formera alors une cicatrice à l'endroit du dommage. Passons maintenant à mon projet. Lorsque la lésion à la moelle épinière se produit, les cellules mourantes se détériorent et libèrent des molécules retenues à l'intérieur qui se répandent dans les tissus. Notre groupe s'intéresse à l'interleukine 1 alpha, une molécule libérée par les microglies mourantes après une lésion et qui entraîne le début de l'inflammation. Notre projet a déjà démontré que l'interleukine 1 alpha se joint aux cellules formant les vaisseaux sanguins qui libèrent alors une autre molécule dans le sang, la chimiokine. La chimiokine attire les cellules du système immunitaire qui s'attachent à leur tour aux cellules formant les vaisseaux sanguins, les traversent, se répandent dans le tissu et accroissent ainsi l'inflammation. L'interleukine 1 alpha se joint aussi aux astrocytes, les rendant neurotoxiques et qui libèrent alors une molécule tuant les oligodendrocytes. Tous ces événements causent l'inflammation et accroissent le site de la lésion. Il nous faut encore déterminer les mécanismes derrière l'interleukine 1-alpha qui permettent l'infiltration des cellules immunitaires, comment cela modifie les astrocytes et comment meurent les oligodendrocytes. Ces recherches permettraient de trouver un nouveau médicament qui pourrait prévenir ces événements d'accroître les dommages chez les personnes atteintes de lésions à la moelle épinière. Merci pour votre attention. Pour plus d'informations, visitez le site internet du centre de recherche.
Merci beaucoup, Adrienne, pour cette vidéo. Donc, n'hésitez pas si vous avez des questions pour Adrienne dans le chat ou en direct.
Okay, so thank you very much, Adrienne. If anyone has any question, please. I have a question myself. I'm very curious about how long did it take you to do this stop motion movie?
It was really long. And the worst part is that when I finished the video, I realized that I have 4 minutes. So I have to So I have to remove some scene that take me 3 days to make the scene. It was like, oh my God, what I done. But at the end, I think that I am happy with the results, and I think it's a good video.
Have you ever done stop motion before?
No,
or?
It was the first time. It's true that there's some years I want to do something like that with the stop motion, but I never have the opportunity or. But this time I start like a joke. Okay, maybe I can do a stop motion video with Play-Doh, and finally go ahead, and I finally made it.
Yeah, it's super nice. Luisa, you have a question?
Yeah, it's more a curiosity because I find it amazing that you took the time to learn and do the stop motion. Did you like use any kind of special software to help you, like, or did you move everything by yourself and like it was everything stop motion? I mean,
yes, I'm not really good with software, so every movement is made by my hand, because for me it was much more easy than have to learn on some software. But it's true that there's one application for phone that is very easy to use, that make you help you with the last position of the Play-Doh, so you can see where was the position before, so you can do the movement one by one, little by little. And that is the only software that I use. It's called Stop Motion Studio. It's an app for phone, and it's really easy to use.
Thank you. I will definitely use that.
Merci encore beaucoup, Adrienne. Donc, je pense qu'on va passer à la dernière vidéo, si je ne me trompe pas, Marina.
Yes. Okay, so the last video is from Reza. He's a PhD student under the supervision of Dr. Yves Deconec and Antoine Godin. He presents an attractive and pleasant video throughout his very clear common thread. Do people from Mars and Venus feel the same way?
Donc, la dernière vidéo est présentée par Reza, qui est étudiant au doctorat sous la supervision des docteurs Yves Deconec et Antoine Godin, et présente une vidéo attrayante et agréablement suivie par son fil conducteur très clair. Est-ce que les personnes de Mars et Vénus ressentent la même chose?
Hi everybody, my name is Reza, and today we will see if people from Mars and Venus feel the same way. Let's start. When there is a peripheral stimulation, we have the peripheral nerves to transfer this information to the spinal cord and brain. These nerves look like this in the spinal cord, like streets with a positive and negative car in it, which are essential for the activity of the nerves. But honestly, we don't have cars in the nerves. We have ions, positive and negative, like chloride, sodium, and potassium. These ions move alongside the nerve, and they go inside and outside of the nerve, and they transfer the information. But there is one big difference between the peripheral nerves and other neurons in the spinal cord and brain. It's about chloride. Chloride concentration is much higher in the peripheral nerves than other neurons, and this is because of one of the chloride co-transporter NKCC1, which accumulate the chloride much more in the peripheral nerves than other neurons and keep the chloride concentration higher in the peripheral nerves. But why we are interested in chloride? Because when there is an stimulation, male and female don't feel this stimulation in the same way, and females are more sensitive. For example, females are prone to feel more pain. So we thought, since chloride is one of the important ions to control the nerve's activity and its concentration is crucial, maybe the difference in chloride concentration in the peripheral nerves can make these sex differences in sensory threshold. So we decided to measure the chloride concentration in the peripheral nerves in the mice. And we found that, indeed, chloride concentration is different and it's much higher in the male than female. Then we decided to block the chloride cotransporter to find out its contribution in this higher and different chloride concentration. And we found that by blocking this cotransporter, chloride concentration decreased significantly in the male, but it doesn't change in female. So we think this cotransporter can be one of the reasons for the sex differences in the sensory threshold. And currently, we are looking to find important actor in controlling chloride concentration in females. And we hope the result of this research will help us to have more sex-specific medications. Thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you, Reza, for your video. If anyone has a question, please feel free to ask.
Merci beaucoup, Reza, pour la vidéo. Donc oui, n'hésitez pas à poser vos questions encore une fois.
Okay, Luca?
Yeah, hello. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. First of all, great video. I had a question, general one. Why do you think there's this difference of NKCC1 from periphery and the brain? Like, what could be the function of a different cotransporter in the two neurons?
Actually, this is the difference that it happens during the development, because when the neurons are like the immature, like when it's the before, like the most of the time before born, before born, and then like sometimes it's a bit later, like 2-3 weeks later, the neurons start to switch. So there are like different chloride cotransporters like NKCC1 and KCC2. Then when it's immature, we have less KCC2 and more NKCC1, and then it switch, and in the most of the CNS neurons, it become more KCC2, which extrude chloride outside, and NKCC1 level decrease, which intrude, like bring the chloride in the cells. And this is, I think, because of the difference in the signaling in the neurons, because when the neurons are younger, they need like the higher chloride concentration for less excitability, because they should stay calm, and then they start to switch this cotransporter to, as I understood, it's because of this.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Okay, I don't know if there's any other question. Oh, yes, there's one. Renata?
Okay, yeah, actually I did in slices and in also the in vivo, in the live animal. I mean, for sure under anesthesia, but so I used the chloride sensor, which named the superchloromillion, which is sensitive to the chloride, like the GCAMP that people use for calcium. So it's superchloromillion, it's sensitive for chloride, but the advantage is it's ratiometric. It means that there is two fluorophore, that one of them it's not sensitive to chloride and other one is sensitive to chloride. So by making the ratio with these two and the calibration, we can estimate almost exact chloride concentration in the cell.
Thanks.
Merci beaucoup encore, Reza, donc, pour ta vidéo. Marina, we can pass to the winner's announcement. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Donc, nous allons désormais passer à la remise des prix. Mais avant cela, donc, nous aimerions encore une fois remercier les juges de leur temps qu'ils ont pris pour évaluer les vidéos, ainsi que le Centre de recherche Cerveau et l'Axe Neurosciences, donc, pour leur contribution financière qui nous permet de remettre ces prix, ainsi que Blick Photonics pour le prêt de son imprimante 3D pour le prix principal.
So we will now continue with the prize giving. But before that, we would love to thank once again the judges for their time in evaluating the videos, as well as Cerveau Research Center and Neuroscience Axis of Schule of Quebec for the financial contribution for the awards. And we'd also like to thank Blick Photonics for lending us the 3D printing machine to have the main award for the first prize. And now, well, if anyone wants to open their cameras, also Yasong Karamidis, winner of one of the winners of CERVOtube 2020 edition and former Cervole president, will now uncover the names of the winners for this competition.
Hello everyone. Here from Kodak Theater. It's too good to be here with you this evening to announce the winners of CERVOtube for 2022. I couldn't wear my tuxedo, unfortunately, for tonight, but at least I brought you here where the Oscars magic happens. So at this point, I have to congratulate all the participants for their amazing short video productions they did. You can't even imagine how time-consuming and how much patience it requires to edit a 3 minutes video. So I can't even imagine how it will be editing like a 2 hours long video of Christopher Nolan or one of the big directors. But let's not waste more time. The organizing committee sent me 3 envelopes like this that has, of course, the names of the winners. And as you could imagine, since I have 3 envelopes, it means we have 3 winners for tonight. I have to apologize in advance if I will butcher your name. I haven't seen the names of the winners, so I don't really know how to pronounce correctly the names. And as everyone knows, my knowledge in French and my French pronunciation is notorious. So let's see the nominees for the 3rd place award. Oops, sorry, I totally forgot. We're not in the Oscars tonight, so there's no short video presenting the participants. So this brings us to the moment where I open the envelope. So the 3rd place award goes to Amélie Poulain-Brière. So congratulations, Amélie. So this is really uncomfortable because it's happening through Zoom. So there is no audience clapping, there is nothing. Well, congrats again, Amélie. Brilliant work. I think we could continue to the nominees for the 2nd place award. Oh, sorry. There is no short video again, but then since we have 5 videos, you could imagine, 6 videos in total, you could imagine we have 5 nominees for this award. And the 2nd place award goes to Adrián Castellanos Molina. Congratulations, Adrián. So this brings us to the important moment where I will have to announce which is the winner for the 3rd prize. So I wish there was some audience creating some suspense or something, but this is what we do when we do through Zoom. Oh yes, now this is the feeling. So the Oscar goes to Sarah Lecordier. Congratulations, Sarah. It was a really nice video. It seems that the brainy and Alzheimer's won for this time. Congratulations.
Thanks a lot. I'm very touched.
Well, you got a really nice prize. I didn't get any of these 2 years ago, unfortunately. And then I hear that there is also a People's Choice Award, which means that there is an additional winner. It's not just 3, there is a 4th one. And this winner is, oh, that's a surprise. It's again Adrián Castellanos Molina.
Gracias. Thank you so
Congrats
much.
again. So you won the 2nd prize, but also the People's Choice Award.
Thank you so much.
Great job. Congrats. So I think with that, Marina and Estelle.
Thank you, Yason, for the amazing presentation of winners.
Well, here in LA is super warm, so we are happy and we are trying to make our best. We're preparing the Oscars, so.
Okay, Estelle, I give you the word.
Ok. Yes, donc, et puis donc les autres participants recevront également aussi un prix de participation. Donc, on reviendra vers vous par email pour vous expliquer tout ça encore plus en détail.
Yeah, so we're gonna reach all of the participants to let you know what are the awards and how we will proceed. And well, before closing the event, we would like to thank everyone for attending this event. And we would also like to thank all the backstage and the organization, to Walid Idi and Estelle from Schule de Quebec, and also Renata, Luisa, Revati, Charles Gora, and I don't know if I'm allowed to thank myself, from CERVOtube. And a special thanks for all the background hard work from Renata and Luisa to make this event possible. And once again, I will thank for the financial contribution from Cerveau Foundation and the Neuroscience Axis from Schule de Quebec, and for Blick for allowing us to make such an amazing first prize.
Oui, merci beaucoup à tous d'avoir participé à cet événement final. Merci encore aux participants pour vos vidéos, votre important travail. Merci à Caroline Ménard pour votre speech. Puis donc tous les juges. Un grand bravo du coup à toute l'équipe de l'organisation aussi au CERVOtube. Ce fut très sympa d'organiser ça tous ensemble. Puis encore merci donc au Centre de recherche Cerveau et à l'Axe Neurosciences ainsi qu'à Blick Photonique pour ces prix.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, and have a good evening.
Merci tout le monde, très bonne soirée, puis à très bientôt.
Okay. Bye.